Welcome to Democrats of Greater Tucson. My name is Larry Bodine. I'm the president, and I will be your host today. We have a wonderful speaker in Sandra Kennedy, who has been devoting her life to public service for the last 35 years. She was first elected to the Arizona Corporation Commission in 2008 on a platform of promoting solar energy in Arizona. She's also a fierce consumer advocate. She got started back in 1986 when she was elected to the State House of Representatives for 6 years. Followed up by, in 1992, she was elected to represent her district in the Arizona Senate. Also, in 1990, while she was in the legislature, she served on the Phoenix Union High School Governing Board. She is the first and only African American in Arizona to hold statewide office, and the first African American to be a statewide elected official west of the Mississippi. And with that, Sandra, the floor is yours. Tell us what's going on.
Thank you, Larry, for that introduction. I really appreciate it. And I want to make sure everyone can hear me. It is great to be with the Democrats of Greater Tucson again. I know that, I believe the last time I was with you, it was just before the pandemic. And pandemic has created Zoom. So we Zoom all of our meetings, and it actually creates a great way for me to travel. I can be at 3 meetings all over the state at one time or at different times of the day. So it is great, but I think it'll be even greater once we come out of the pandemic and we can all come together again, kind of join and fellowship with one another in person. Let's talk a little bit about taking our state boldly into the clean energy future. And as is often the case, Tucson and Pima County are leading the way. And I am proud to say that Tucson and Pima County are leading the way. And I'm happy to report we are seeing signs of legitimate process at TEP, Tucson Electric Power. There is no question this utility is responding to pressure from the community to end the use of dirty fossil fuels like coal and natural gas, and they are transitioning to a clean energy future. Many utilities, including, I won't call the name of the utility up here in Phoenix, they should go mentionless today, are pushing for new fossil natural gas power plants, which could commit our state to more than decades of fossil fuel reliance. That is not the direction that I think Arizona should be moving into. TEP currently does not propose any new fossil fuel power plants, and instead they plan to expand renewable energy and battery storage. So I give them kudos for that. In September, the commission approved 2 new large-scale solar farms planned for Cochise County, which will serve TEP customers with affordable clean energy. TEP plans to also reach 70% renewables by 2035 and a total retirement of coal by 2032. So progress is being made. We're seeing it, but thanks to the great activists, and many of which are here today on this Zoom. And we have put in the work, you have put in the work for the results that you see from TEP and the many years that you have put in the results. The question now is the speed at which this transition occurs. Energy experts are telling us as a nation we need to double our pace. If it were left up to me, I would say we should triple our pace. Is that feasible? I'm not sure. I'd just really like to see Arizona lead in renewable energy. I think we could be the solar capital. And I've said that for many years. I think we made great strides when I got to the commission back in 2009, but we've taken some back we've taken steps backwards, which has not done us, it's actually done great harm. But we have the future to look forward to, and hopefully with folks like yourself continuing to be activists, we have a lot of work to do. Let's talk a little bit about the disconnection rules, which was one of my top priorities after getting back to the commission. We have established greater protections for our most vulnerable, from electric shutoffs due to late bill payments. We have seen some tragic deaths here in recent years across the state. Earlier this month, the commission passed new electric and gas disconnection protection rules for our ratepayers. And I think it, in abundance to what we do, is trying to, or what I've tried to do is protect the ratepayers from what the utilities have been able to do for years, and that's just disconnect without notice, or disconnect and say we left a notice, and there's no accountability. Being late on an energy bill should not threaten the lives of ratepayers. And these new rules are a real step in the right direction by prohibiting utility shutoffs between June 1st and October 15th, as if temperatures exceed 95 degrees. I did push for stronger protections, but however, I do believe this step will save lives. Let's talk a little bit about water. Water is really a huge component for us. We do live in the desert. There's not enough conservation, as far as I can see, being directed from the commission. And I think as water levels at Lake Mead dwindle, we always must keep a close eye on our most precious resource. And while the commission does not regulate Tucson water, we have seen progress on reduced per capita consumption within Tucson's municipal footprint. And again, I give you kudos for that. You are more forward thinking than the rest of the state. Water utilities regulated by the commission and outlying areas have some catching up to do, and this will be a priority for me as I continue to serve on the commission. And I'm hoping that I will be able to continue to serve on the commission after next year's re-election. I am up for re-election, and as stated earlier, I am running with Lauren Kuby. She and I are running together, and we need to make sure that electing Lauren and re-electing myself, there will be great changes when it comes to our environment and making Arizona the solar capital of the world. As the city of Tucson prepares its climate action plan, I think it's critical that we turn the page on fossil natural gas and move our economy towards the electrification of industrial processes and home appliances. New alternatives such as green hydrogen also hold promise, but the days of expansion of fossil fuel infrastructure need to come to an end. And I say that very boldly. I don't hide how I feel. I am very firm about moving Arizona to a different place. And again, I'd like to thank Mr. Blelick, because he is very active at the commission. He tells us how he feels, and I need direction, and I appreciate his direction that he gives me and others at the commission. And I think with that, maybe I will take some questions, because this is a subject that I like to talk about. I could probably talk about it for days and hours. So thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Well, you're more than welcome, Sandra. Thank you so much for coming to our program today. Mike, do you have any questions at this point? Anything in the chat?
Nothing from the chat yet, but I do have a question of my own. Commissioner Kennedy, are any changes needed to our building codes regarding installed gas and heating and cooking appliances in order to make that transition away from fossil fuels?
Well, that's one of the things I think that the city climate action plan is working. I believe, and I think Mr. Bulichek can help me with this one. I have had a conversation with the mayor down there. I think that local control could continue to play a huge part. The state of Arizona, and it's going to really depend on our new governor. It's going to depend on our legislature to come up with codes that make sure that people are in compliance when it comes to dealing with new rules when it comes to renewable energy. So I agree that there may need to be rules. I'm going to stick with the rules that I know that we implement and come up with at the commission, but local control needs to play a huge part in helping make the transition.
Gail Kamaris has a question. Go ahead, Gail, just unmute yourself.
Yes, I have a question about the proposed transmission line just east of downtown Tucson that TEP is proposing to do overhead through neighborhoods. And what is your position and what is the commission's position?
It's a great question. Unfortunately, I can't answer or talk about it because that line is being discussed with the line siting committee. And once the committee decides what they're going to do with it, and they have had public testimony, then it will come before the commission, and then I will have an opportunity to voice my opinion.
Craig Markin, you have a question. Go right ahead.
Hello. What can the Corporation Commission do to encourage building solar panels over parking lots at shopping malls, for example?
Well, I think that's a great question. One of the things that Commission has authority to do is to implement rules. And what I have found my challenge is to call up my friends at the city council and say, hey, can you encourage new developers to put in solar panels or battery backup? If you are doing new development, can you encourage the developers to put in battery backup or some type of renewable energy so that people can benefit from it? One of the things that I worked with when I was at the commission before was I worked with TEP to do solar on poles, light poles, electrical poles, so that those who lived in apartment complexes and condominiums could have the benefit of renewable energy. And I know that once I left the commission back in 2013, TEP took down all of those panels. And I've asked the question and I've raised the question, how can we encourage owners of projects or owners of apartment complexes, owners of condos how do we engage them to participate in renewable energy? So we're looking strongly at community solar. And I think community solar may be the answer, or it may not be the answer. But I think that it is important for us to talk about with our local entities, how can we get individuals involved in participating from day one of the development, so that if let's say my daughter, who is 24 years old, my baby girl, and she says, Mom, it's hard. Electricity is expensive. She says, but if I could find a place where there was renewable energy and I could buy a block of solar or two, she says, I think it would save me money. We need to encourage that with individuals, landowners, not landowners, but landlords, and encourage them that this is the way to go. And it helps, not only helps the environment, but it helps those who are utilizing the electricity from those properties.
Thank you. Kate Garmany. I'm sorry. Yeah, Garmany has a question.
I was thinking about the fact that I've met people who don't realize that they can do something besides putting solar panels on their own house, that they can encourage a group like TEP. And it sounds like you're already doing that, but I think that may be a word that isn't out in the general community. Do you have any comments on this?
You know, we have tried to encourage the utilities, and again, I have to give TEP kudos because I think they do a lot more than the other utilities around the state, even the largest utility here in Maricopa County. You know, I think education is a big part of it. And if the utilities aren't educating their ratepayers or their consumers about what's available to them, they will never know. I've asked many times about, what do you put in your bill inserts? How do you communicate with your ratepayers? Do you communicate by way of text messaging? What is the means of communication so that you can reach individuals so that they know what you have to offer? And I think all of the utilities are getting better, but it's almost like pulling teeth from a baby to get them to just kind of do it. And it's a challenge, but I think it will eventually get better. It's just gonna get better with time, but it's gonna only get better with the people we elect at the commission, the people that you elect as governor, the people you elect as legislators. It will only get better with time.
Let's turn to Robert Blelick, the energy man. Go ahead, Robert.
Commissioner Kennedy, one of my great interests is in reduction of emissions from buildings. Can you talk about what it would take to allow electric utilities to have incentives for replacing a fossil gas water heater with a heat pump water heater? And related is kind of, how do we not have incentives by the gas companies to replace equipment? Even if you already have a gas appliance, they shouldn't be able to get a rebate to put in a new gas appliance. I mean, we need to just electrify that stuff. So, and that seems totally up your alley. What could the Corporation Commission do to help with that?
I think you are, and I appreciate that question. I think you are very well aware of the makeup of the commission and sometimes how tough it is to get things through. Incentives are right up my alley. I think in order to get people involved and to raise their curiosity, I think incentives are the biggest ally that we have to get people to participate. Incentives have basically gone out the door. But again, I'm going to say again, elections have consequences. And I do believe if we had a majority at the commission, we would be able to create incentives and create a power base so that individuals will want to participate because there's an incentive there. What the incentive should look like, that is a huge question that would have to be worked out with a lot of stakeholders and the utility company. But I think that incentives are a means to get participation. And I think that we have just kind of lost our way by not using incentives or allowing incentives to be reduced to a measure that it becomes zeroed out. So that's my answer. I would hope that you will continue, as you have been in the past, to be very vocal that incentives are a great thing and not a negative thing when it comes to the environment and new technology.
Sandra, I have a question of my own. I just bought a new car. It's a Toyota RAV4 hybrid. It's a plug-in hybrid car, and I can get $7,500 in federal tax credits. And when I asked around about, well, can I get Arizona credits as well? And I was told, no, Arizona offers no incentives or tax credits for green cars that don't use fossil fuel so much. What's the likelihood of Arizona getting an auto tax credit for electric and hybrid cars?
You know, I agree with you. I think that it's going to take a strong individual, a strong governor to work with the legislature and to actually have maybe some input from the commission. You know, we are considered the fourth branch of government, even though you would think the legislature and the governor think that they can tell us what to do. We are constitutionally formed, and probably next to the governor's office, probably the most powerful office in this state, with not having, again, an incentive for individuals with who own electric vehicles. That is the new wave of the future, is electric vehicles. And we're not even asking the utility companies to participate other than to make sure there's a hookup and people who are purchasing electric vehicles, that they can recharge or charge their vehicles in their garage. Again, I think incentives are great. It's just sad that we do not have a government, a governor or a legislature who believes in what we believe in. Again, elections have consequences.
Let's turn now to Michael Bryant.
A couple of questions from the chat. Tom Chapin would like to hear you discuss the rate of return reduction for APS that you all did recently. He congratulates you on that decision, by the way.
Thank you, Tom, for that question. I tell you, it was probably the best rate case that I have sat and participated with from day one. The hearings went 3 weeks, almost 4 weeks every day. And then to actually take the time, we had 36 amendments that were offered between the 5 commissioners. And I think 17 of the amendments were actually adopted to the APS rate case. APS was asking for an awful lot of money in their rate of return. They actually got an 8.7 rate of return. Now, did we leave enough money on the table for the ratepayers? I'm going to say no. I think that even though we reduced APS's rate of return, we still took an awful lot of money off the table that could have been returned to the ratepayers. There was an amendment, which I did not support, to give APS or pay APS for the SCRs on the coal plant. My question was it a prudent expense? I don't think it was. And I stand by that. I think APS spent ratepayer money because they just assumed that the commission, whom they have had in their back pocket for all these years, was going to approve the total amount of nearly $500 million in, they got probably 200, I think it was 280 million for their imprudent expense. If we had just waited long enough to have a couple of workshops and talk about the expense of the SCRs, I think we probably could have put a little more on the table for the ratepayers, and they would have really been able to see a reduction in their monthly bill.
Could you clarify what an SCR is?
Oh, the STRs, and I'll make it very easy for you. It is the equipment that what the utilities call scrubbers to clean the stacks up at the coal plant, and that's probably probably the easiest way to dumb it down so that everybody will understand what it is and what it does.
Lee Olin has a question in the chat. She wanted to know, I'm assuming she's talking about the coordinated campaign, what your role is or what your thoughts are about the Democrats' statewide coordinated campaign this time around.
Our chair Ms. Tehran has made a decision that coordinated campaign will be run by Senator Kelly, which it was run by Senator Kelly the last time. My concern, and I think I shared that concern with everyone before, was, just down ballot candidates and hoping that the down ballot candidates don't get lost in the shuffle. I do understand that the Senate race is important, the governor's race is important, but you have to look at the other races that are down ballot. If you look at the commission race is not at the top of the ballot. It's nearly at the bottom of the ballot. And that's why I try to convince people in just kind of a little saying that I do every time I go out, and I say, hey, turn your ballot upside down, start from the bottom of the ballot and work your way to the top. If we aren't educating people about how important it is to vote for every Democrat on the ballot, we're going to have just drop off as we normally do every election cycle. It's not good for Democrats. And I appreciate Senator Kelly for wanting to lead the charge in the coordinated campaign. But I'm just really hoping that Mission for Arizona will work as hard as they do for him, as they will work as hard for the other candidates on the ballot.
And Lee Oler corrected me, says that she wanted also to know specifically about the ACC's statewide campaign, your campaign, and what your plans are.
Lauren Kuba and I are working together as a team, and we are working from one end of the state to the other. We're trying not to be at the same event at the same time, because as she is out campaigning for the both of us, as I am when I am, whether I'm in Kingman or if I'm in Show Low, I am campaigning for Lauren and I both. Lauren and I want Lauren, and I'm going to try and work my damnedest to make sure that she gets elected so that we can have that second seat. There are only 2 seats up this go round. I'm running for re-election. There is 1 open seat because one commissioner has decided to actually run against Senator Kelly. So we are strongly talking about renewable energy. We want to be the consumer advocates. We want to be the voice of Arizona consumers. And we want to make sure that we are talking about conservation. We're talking about not building more fossil plants, but looking at technology as technology changes every day when it comes to environmental issues and renewable energy. So we are working very hard on a statewide basis, and hopefully in November of next year, you will have Sandra Kennedy return to the commission, and you will have a newly elected Lauren Kuby on the Arizona Corporation Commission.
And that'll be just awesome. Let's turn to Andrea Kennedy. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Oh, hi, Sandra. Thanks for coming in to see us today. Talk more about green hydrogen energy. How feasible is it? How affordable is it? Tell us about it. Thank you.
Well, when we talk about green hydrogen, I know that we've got a couple of utilities that are talking about it now. I think that it is a great alternative. I think it's an alternative that has not gotten as much attention as other alternatives. And I think that it is a technology that I am learning about and have been looking at it for the last 10, almost a year now, been looking at it to see if it is actually feasible for Arizona. I'd like to see maybe one of the utilities to kind of dive into it, maybe set up a pilot project to see how we can make it work, whether we make it work with residential customers, industrial customers, or commercial customers. But I think we need to figure out how we put a pilot together to actually see how it works and fits into Arizona's renewable portfolio.
Michael DeSantis, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Thank you so much for being here, commissioners. My question has to do with water. I've seen competition up close between agricultural usage and residential usage of water. I wonder what the role of the Corporation Commission might be in that this transition, this conversation that's happening, and I think is going to, as the reservoirs are getting lower and water allocations are becoming more challenging, is going to really heat up. And what's your role going to be in that?
I can tell you that for those agricultural lands that utilize a lot of water, the companies that they get their water from are starting to look at tiers, and they're looking at 1, 2, and 3 tiers of users, and conservation is a huge issue, again, with me, and getting those water companies, and other than the CAP, now we don't regulate CAP, the CAP has their own regulation, but CAP also gives an awful lot of water, or they are a water supplier to large agricultural users. So we don't per se have a say in those users, but we do have a say in some farming land that use water where we get to say, okay, if you are a huge user, your price per acre feet is a little bit higher than the normal user. So yes, we are trying our best to do that, and we're trying to do it in a constructive way to not hurt farmers, but to, show that we are concerned about the water usage, and to make sure that, even in development, we've got at least a 100-year water supply. The question that I keep asking everyone is, are we assured of this 100-year water supply? And everyone keeps saying yes. I'm a little skeptical. I'm not sure we do, but I don't want to wait, and I don't want my children or my children's children to have to deal with those types of issues. I think we need to, as my grandfather used to say, hit it with a nail right now and do something about it.
Let's turn back to Mike Bryan. Mike, what's going on in the chat? And I think you have a question of your own.
I do. Commissioner Kennedy, it was mentioned that you are Arizona's highest elected Black official. And so I was wondering if you had any professional or personal interaction with Secretary Hobbs. And if so, do you have an opinion about Talona Adams' allegation that, I quote, "She's always been very uncomfortable with minorities. She seems wholly disconnected from people of color." Do you share Ms. Adams' view that Secretary Hobbs is a racist and that she's unfit to hold office?
Well, I'm glad that question came up. It is not a question that I am running from or hiding from. And let me be very plain and clear. I have talked to Katie or Ms. Hobbs about this issue from day one. In fact, I really had a conversation with her in 2018, the night that the African American Caucus had a debate in Southern Arizona at the cultural center down there. And I told her, I said, you need to address this issue. This elephant in the room is not going to go away. You need to address it. And she promised me that night that she was going to address it and did not. We have gotten together, probably 2 or 3 times since then, since 18, and we've had a conversation, and she promised me that she was going to deal with it. I said, it's an issue that the Black community is very concerned about, and I don't think you can run from it. And this year, when she called me and asked me to support her for governor, and I said, Katie, the issue is still out there. You need to address it. And if you don't address it now, I see it being a huge issue for your campaign. She said she understood. She said that she was going to address it. From that day to this day, and knowing that there have now been 2 verdicts from the lawsuit that Ms. Adams brought to or against the legislature. She didn't bring it against Ms. Hobbs, but she brought it against the legislature, and found out that in both decisions, both verdicts, was that there was not only racism, but retaliation. And I have not spoken with Mrs. Hobbs since the verdict. I was actually waiting for her to call me, which she has not done so. But do I feel that she's a racist? Only Ms. Hobbs can answer that question. And I would hope that, you know, what should have been a one-day story has now turned into a 2-week story. And I think only Ms. Hobbs can fix the problem or the situation at hand. And I have always had an open door, and I have always said to Katie, I would help her at whatever means, but she has not reached out to me.
Have you ever gotten the personal impression that she's uncomfortable with minorities or disconnected from minority interests?
Now, do you want my honest opinion?
Oh, yeah.
You want my honest answer?
Yeah.
And that answer is yes.
Thank you.
Then let's turn to Andrea Kennedy. Go ahead, Andrea, and unmute.
Considering that the many of the GOP up in Phoenix now have turned into jackbooted thugs, and that Katie Hobbs is in a position where she's getting death threats, I really wonder how much power or control she had over the situation. I really would like to hear from her. If Sandra has an opinion on that, I'd like to hear it. But I really wonder if she really isn't just between a rock and a hard place.
I'm not sure what you mean by if she's between a rock and a hard place.
How much control does she have? I mean, I've already read that she wasn't the one who made the decision to do the firing. And that's what I was wondering about. How much say does she have in this at all?
Miss Andrea, I appreciate that question. And I'm going to lead everyone on this Zoom to the transcripts of the case. I think everyone should read the transcripts from the first verdict to the second one. And I think they both speak volumes. And I'll let you make the decision on that.
Michael Bryan, you have a question. Go ahead, Michael.
Actually, this one's from the chat. It's from Lucy Messing. She's wondering if you're aware of anything in the bipartisan infrastructure bill or the Build Back Better plan that just passed the House that would help with our water situation here in Arizona, specifically those issues with Lake Powell and the power service that it provides here in Arizona.
Well, actually, I have asked for a meeting with Senator Sinema and Senator Kelly because I would like to talk about what we are to expect here in Arizona. I do know a huge portion of that bill that was passed and signed has a lot to do with infrastructure and electric vehicles, and a lot of the utilities will get some money. I just don't know how much money will be going towards water, but I do know some will. I just don't know the specifics. So I'll be more than happy to come back at a later time to share with you the information that I get after I sit down with the two senators or their staff.
Robert, you've got another question. Go ahead, Robert Blelick.
I just wanted to know if the Corporation Commission has any involvement in SRP's plan to spend $1 billion and install, I think it's another 800 gigawatts or something of fossil gas generation. I understand that the commission does not directly regulate SRP, but this seems like the very definition of an imprudent investment. Is there anything the commission can do to try to get SRP to spend that $1 billion on renewable energy instead of more fossil gas?
I'm glad you raised that question, and it's probably a good thing that they have not filed their case before the commission to go to the line siting committee. So I can briefly talk about it. So last week I filed a letter after meeting with SRP to find out about their project, and I was a little concerned that the technology that they're using is a little old and a little antiquated. It is in an area where there is a small community called Randolph, which is a majority minority community. And my concern is the emission that will come from that plant. And I do understand that SRP is not going to run it, as they say, all the time. But question that I raised was, couldn't you have found some renewable technology to use instead? Mr. Blelick, I want you to know, if you'll go to the docket and read my letter, I have asked some of the questions that you have just raised, and I am waiting for them to respond, and hopefully I will get a response from SRP this week. So stay tuned.
Sandra, I wonder if for a minute you could talk about how reliable and solid the Arizona electric grid is. As we all know, Texas was hit by a big storm and it knocked out power in most of the state. And in fact, it was so bad, it drove Ted Cruz to go leave the state and go on vacation in Mexico. Are we facing something like that in Arizona?
Well, we had our winter preparedness a couple of weeks ago, and we were told that Arizona is prepared for this winter. And one of the questions that I did raise was, how often are the companies going out and are they inspecting their lines? And I do know that Southwest Gas is inspecting. Maybe they aren't inspecting as often as they should, but they are making inspections, as they say, on a timely basis. I think that Arizona will probably not have an occurrence or an event like that of Texas. Texas is just an animal, a different kind of animal of their own. I don't know if you remember, Mr. Bodine, back in 2010, I believe it was, when there was an outage in southern Arizona where Southwest Gas had a huge, there was a freeze, and there was not the ability to get the gas to the customers. So I've asked the question of Southwest Gas and to the electric companies to make sure that in case we do have a huge event of the magnitude of Texas, is that we've got to have a plan to make sure that foremost, our seniors are able to be taken care of first. We've got to figure out, they've got to come up with a plan to make sure that women, children, low income, or those issues are addressed, and that they know they're going to know what to do, how to do it, if an event such as that comes or happens here in Arizona. So I'm saying in essence, that we're praying and hoping that we don't have an event like that. It looks like just from global warming, it's going to only get warmer here in the state of Arizona. And we may have a cold spell, but it won't be a cold spell, whereas we will have freezing here or an outage.
Sandra, thank you very much. We're almost out of time and we've exhausted all the questions. I wonder if you could sum up for us how we can support you, where people can find out information about you, and if people want to volunteer, what should they do?
Thank you. I appreciate it. And Mr. Bryan has put it in the information in the chat. There are 3 links. I am a clean elections candidate. You can give me a $5 donation. I'd really appreciate it. That $5 goes a long way. Lauren and I will get dollars, and we're going to combine our money so that we can run a campaign statewide that is beneficial to us. You can also go online. There's a link there to sign my petition. And there's also a link to give me seed money. So I really would appreciate any support that you can give me. And if you can share the links with your friends and your family, that would be great too. I need about $2,005 donations. We are probably maybe a third of the way there. And we hope that we can get the rest of our $5s by the 1st of January, no later than the 1st of February, so that we can file and get our dollars. But I want to say thank you for allowing me to come and speak before DGT. It is always a pleasure to come and speak before you. It is always, as I always say, it's always good to be in Southern Arizona. So thank you so much. And your support means the world to me. And I hope that I have been able to fulfill the shoes that you have put in front of me to make sure that I am not just the candidate, but the elected official who represents you and everyone in the state of Arizona. Again, thank you.
Sandra, and thanks again from all the members of Democrats of Greater Tucson. We appreciate that you're on the Corporation Commission and you're fighting for consumers. You're a rare person in public office, and we all appreciate it. And with that, I'm going to draw the meeting to a close, and I look forward to seeing you all in a week. And in the meantime, have a warm and lovely Thanksgiving and be safe out there. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Sandra.